Joining me now from Tel Aviv is Amir Tibon, the diplomatic correspondent for the Israeli newspaper Haaretz. Amir, thanks for your time. The anger in Israel is far from dissipating and the protests are now widening across the country. What is likely to happen next, do you think?
So this bill that was approved last night at the first reading of our Knesset still has to go through two more votes in order to become the law of the land. And this means that in the next few weeks, until the end of the summer session of our Knesset, our parliament, we will see an escalation in the protests across the country because there is widespread fear in the public that this legislation will significantly weaken the ability to conduct judicial review over actions of the government. And it's a matter of principle, but for many people, it also has to do with the specific character of this government, which is the most extreme, most right-wing and most religious government in Israeli history, and a government that clearly wants to change the balance of power in the country and make Israel a much more religious country and much less liberal country than it is today. And to remove the judicial review over it is something that agitates many people. And so what we're seeing today is an escalation that will remain with us for several weeks now.
Yet Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu seems to be deaf to the outrage. Do you think he is at all capable of walking back from this, or will he take the country to the brink?
3 months ago, we were at a similar moment with another piece of legislation that was meant to harm the independence of the judicial system and give the government complete control over all judicial appointments. Back then, in the face of massive street protests and also criticism from Israel's allies abroad, the United States, France, Germany, Britain, and others, Netanyahu eventually decided to back down. And a key element that I also want to mention that helped convince him at the time was the growing threat of reservists in the Israeli military, hundreds of people in the Air Force and in other top units, telling the Prime Minister, we will no longer serve if Israel does not remain a democracy. It's impossible to say right now if we are standing in front of a similar moment and if we will back down again in front of the pressure, or if this time he's going.
It seems we've lost our guest there. No, Amir, you're still with us. Just finally, as you pointed out there, the nation is now highly polarised. And as a result, as somebody who's an Israeli, what do you think this means for the future of your country?
We are at a historic moment for Israel. This protest movement signifies the fact that a large segment of the public, the liberal-leaning part of Israel, believes that the government we have today is a threat to the democratic, liberal nature of the country. And this protest movement is not going to dissipate or go away, even if parts of the government's legislation will actually pass. I believe people will continue this fight. And we are seeing here, in a way, a partition of Israeli society into competing segments, the more religious part of the society that wants to make Israel less liberal and less democratic, and the people out in the streets fighting against it. And it's true that the demonstrations have escalated at this point of time because of the specific legislation that went up for a vote last night, but it's part of a wider story that also connects to pictures that we're seeing from other countries as well, where there is this battle over the future of liberal democracy. Israel, in a way, is the front line for that global battle today.
Amir Tibon from Haaretz, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.